Our next guest is Chris Keene with Baile, Cask, and Kettle. I know you have heard about that before. Where do I know that name from? Well, guess what? Baile, Cask, and Kettle is coming to Williamsport. They're in Hagerstown right now, and they've been working on a Williamsport location for a little bit. But I'm excited to have Chris here today. And by the way, he's a veteran, and tomorrow is Veterans Day. So thank you for serving our country along with all the other servicemen out there. So, Chris, welcome to the Dugout
Thank
right
you.
here in
Glad to be here.
Williamsport. I'm glad to have you too. So, I have been in your downtown location, and I got to tell you, it's beautiful, big space. And I want you to share with people here in Williamsport what you have coming and how you envision that here in our town.
All right. If you don't mind, I'll start with how we ended up where we are,
Perfect.
and I'll explain the name because that's probably the first thing people ask is the name, where the name came from. And Bailey is actually Gaelic. My family we're obviously American, but American of Irish descent. And we found a Gaelic word meaning home, and we thought it would be a neat, name for a bar or for a restaurant. And at the time I was deployed, I was in Afghanistan, and my brother, who's a home brewer, won a national award for a beer that he had created. And so while deployed, I came up with a business plan with the idea of creating a place. At the time, it started out pretty simple, as everything does. It starts out simple and then gets complicated. And
Yeah.
we just wanted beer and bagels. We thought a place that would serve beer at night and have bagels in the morning would be a nice combination. And and that also came to the name of the cask and kettle. You use a cask when you're preparing beer, and you use kettles when you make bagels. So we thought we had the perfect name, and if you have the perfect name, then everything else will work. And so we started that, I guess, about 7 years ago. Started the planning, and then now I'd say about 3 years ago, we had the opportunity to work with the county and the city, and trying to find a location. And I think that's when you and I first met. And so the city had the old Updegraft building, which is on 53 West Washington Street downtown. So we're about a block from the city center. Some of your older listeners maybe remember it was Rosen's department store at one point. It was the Potomac Bead Company in the recent incarnation. And now, if you come there, it's a very large space, as you know, but the front half is prepared pretty much for bagels and coffee for breakfast and lunch. And then we open our pub during the week at about 5, and then on the weekends at 1. And we have the pub in the back, and we call it American Irish Pub. One of the first things you'll see is we have a large bison when you come up to the bar. And so it's not your traditional Irish pub, it's not your traditional American pub. But where you and I started talking was we always realized we would never do production brewing there. And so working with the city, we kind of worked hard to get that open. And it was a year ago at the end of October that we were open. And we now are working with the state to switch our brewer's license so that we can start brewing on site, but small batch. So what brought you and I together, and my interest and my family's interest in Williamsport, was the opportunity to really have more of a production brewery with a tasting room. And then the site here that we've looked at, which is next to the post office, not far from where we're sitting, also has an area that can be built out as more of a commercial kitchen, commercial bakery. Anybody that comes to our location in Hagerstown, it's an open kitchen. You can see everything being made right in front of you, but it's pretty much a small kitchen. Our brewery is small. And what Williamsport gives us the opportunity to do is down the road when we're ready, which hopefully will be within the next year, is to do more production brewing and use more of a commercial kitchen. And both of those opportunities would be here in Williamsport. And then just tying into the historic downtown, the C&O Canal, and actually the very first people I ever talked to in Washington County had me look at the C&O Canal as the entry point to the county. And so we've always been fascinated. by the history, whether it's the Cushwa Basin right here or what we see on the trail. And so anybody that comes into our building realizes we appreciate history. We have history, whether it's Hagerstown history, Washington County history, and it's just all over our restaurant and pub. But that was also what showed us the interest here was the history that's in Williamsport and the opportunity to really do something downtown where people come off the C&O Canal with their bikes or walking and come in and get a bagel in the morning or come back in the evening and try our brewery with the tasting room concept.
Chris, I am so glad you shared that because I don't know how many a lot of people may not realize how many people come off the C&O Canal as tourists or coming off the Interstate 81 70 and come to Williamsport. And not to be negative on one point, but when there's an accident on 81 and 70, they're coming to Williamsport anyway. That's the only way out.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a great place to be. And I got to tell you, our main street in our town is growing, it's evolving, and I'm excited to have you be a part of it. But I got to tell you, he mentioned next to the post office. He's correct. That is 30 West Salisbury Street, where the old ambulance hall was. This is where Baile, Cask, and Kettle is going. And so on that main floor where that garage door is, that's where his production and people can have their tastings and
Yeah.
all. And then in the basement is where that bakery is for your bagels. Man, I can just envision the excitement from that. And most people that I know around this area, have a German background, but there's always Irish in there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I can just imagine St. Patrick's weekend or festivals with you right there. That would be a great opportunity for the town as well. So
Would you also look at the JFK, the 50 miler that
yeah,
ends here? Who doesn't
that's
want a
coming up in
bagel
two
and a
weeks.
beer after running 50 miles? I, I
Absolutely.
tell those stories all the time. Some of our menu that we have at Baile in Hagerstown is inspired by. I used to run the Army 10 miler every year up until about 2 years ago, but I'm going to get back to it next year. But I thought it almost canceled this year. But for the last 2 miles, there used to be a pub right near the finish line at the Pentagon, and they served Irish nachos and they had Irish beers on tap. And for my last 2 miles, I never thought about finishing. I thought about eating nachos and
And drinking a
drinking
beer.
beer.
Absolutely.
And so, at some point it would be neat that those people finishing the 50 mile or know that near the finish line is going to be a place where they can have those bagels and get a beer as well.
Mike Spindler, JFK 50 miler. Mike Spindler, do you hearing this guy? I think this is it for the end of JFK, which is coming up 2 weeks, by the way. So I think that's a great idea you
Maybe
just
this time
planted.
next year where
Yeah. Um, so I've gotten the opportunity to meet your mom at your
mm,
Hagerstown location. She is something special, I
thank you.
tell you. And she tell us how she is part of your team here for you and your brother.
So it's funny because you we say meeting my mom, but it's funny because my bar manager on her phone, my mom is in her phone as mom. All my staff calls her mom. And really my parents, I'm blessed in a way that we were raised in restaurants. There was a restaurant in Silver Spring, Maryland when I was growing up. It's called the Anchor Inn. It's not there anymore. The location is there. They turned it into a strip mall. But the Anchor Inn, my parents worked at. My dad was the manager. My mom worked there. And so I kind of grew up around it. And as life goes on and we go different paths, the one thing we always enjoyed was being a family in that restaurant environment. And what my mom brings to the table is one, she's a good buffer for my brother and I, because at the end of the day, we're still brothers, and we have a third brother in California, and he'll come out on occasion as well. But she's that buffer between the brothers. But she's in a lot of ways the soul of the restaurant. But beyond that, she's really a genius of behind the menu. My mom has always been somebody that She did almost 30 years as a caterer, and it started out as doing catering for friends. It became a business for a while, and at the end of the day, she makes amazing food. So, great example is St. Patrick's Day weekend. We were talking about right before we start. So that was probably our busiest weekend of the year, and it should be for an Irish pub. And we decided we wanted to do. We had a very small menu at the time, and so we tasked my mom with. We wanted something unique for our menu, and so working with our staff, which was its own challenge. My mom used to bring in chili sometimes, and she was like, "Oh, I've got chili, and we can put it on the menu." And I was like, "No, you need to teach our cooks to make your chili. You can't cook it at home and bring it in here and we pop it on the menu." So she'll laugh when she hears that. But working with our cooks, they created on our menu, it's called corned beef tacos, but they're really what I call Irish tacos. And it's corned beef and cabbage with Irish cheddar, a kind of coleslaw that our chefs have come up with, a really fresh coleslaw. And then it's has a horseradish aioli on top. And
Sounds delicious.
it is amazing to the point that one of my staff doesn't like horseradish and she doesn't like corned beef, and it's her favorite thing on the menu. So
It's all about how it's prepared.
exactly.
That's all it is.
And we warm the corned beef on the grill with the Irish cheddar. It's a little steam bath in beer, which helps the cheese melt into the corned beef. But by that Monday, so we put it on the menu Friday of St. Patrick's Day weekend. By that Monday, we had probably 40 or 50 people tell us if we didn't put it on the menu, they weren't going to come back in a good way, not in a bad way. And so she's done that. If you have her cottage pie, and when I say cottage pie, most of you listening are going to think shepherd's pie. If you ever had a shepherd's pie in the United States, it has beef. Technically, a shepherd's pie in Ireland has lamb. Last time we ever wanted was somebody from Ireland to come in and say, well, shepherd's pie is really lamb. So we have a cottage pie on the menu that's to die for. And my mother made that recipe as well. Just a lot of pieces to the menu that my mom has really kind of brought together. Beyond that, the fact that she taught both my brothers and all my brothers and I to cook on our own regard then leads into even more with my brother Kerry, who's the brewer, but also a phenomenal cook. And our burgers, we have smash burgers.
You won a contest for
We
that.
won the best burger in Hagerstown
And
in a little Irish pub.
And I was just going to say, I was so excited for you when I saw that. Matter of fact, you and I talked that day briefly, and I was like, I would have never guessed an Irish pub to win that.
Yeah.
But to your point, your family, your mom is the soul of the food, and it shows.
And we made an effort at the beginning. We made some sacrifices as far as a pub goes, and part of that is honestly because we were always looking at a tasting room concept similar to what we want to do here, never a full kitchen. So French fries and chicken wings, which I enjoy as much, if not more than most people, were never on our menu because we don't have a fryer in our kitchen because we have a small enough kitchen and we have an open air kitchen that we didn't want the first thing you notice coming in our restaurant being grease. We wanted you to smell our burgers or our bagels or whatever else we're cooking at the time. And it also makes for a much cleaner environment. And so we kind of sacrificed on some traditional pub menu items. And then with my mom's guidance, everything we do is fresh. Nothing's ever been frozen. Nothing is fried. It's just a different experience. So when you're eating our smash burgers, we get all of our stuff locally sourced. So I won't call it farm to table, but it's a locally sourced, whether it's our meat, whether it's our vegetables, whatever, we get it locally, and then that's what we serve. So you're getting that fresh taste as much as anything.
Well, I hope that you'll have the smash burger option here in Williamsport too. I mean, that's going to be.
And it's funny because so our name is Baile, Cask, and Kettle. But if you come to the front of our restaurant, it says Bagels and Brews, which was kind of the concept as it started. And then when we opened in Hagerstown, everyone that gave us our proclamation just decided to call us Baile, Bagels, and Brews. which was kind of neat. We were like, okay, that kind of works. It's blending both concepts. But now we're at the point where almost bagels, burgers, and brews, because our burgers are getting to the point, and that would be something here that would not. Because what's nice about the smaller kitchen footprint is it lends itself to a tasting room.
Right.
It lends itself to not having necessarily a huge footprint, which is we have a nice footprint here, but it doesn't have to be the huge footprint that we currently have in Hagerstown.
Well, Chris, I couldn't. I'm good glad that we're doing that. But I could tell you from a business standpoint, I know you know this. Sometimes it's better to keep it small and simple. You don't
Mm,
need too many items.
yep.
And I think, I'm going to tell you, you're doing it right. And
Thank you.
I'm excited for you and your family, and looking forward to it. Hopefully, within the next year, we'll have something going here in this town. Now, remember, you heard him say earlier, it took 7 years just on the planning part. So this is where entrepreneurs will tell you it takes a lot of patience, but the reward at the end is always there. And we're grateful for that, aren't we?
Yes, very
Yeah.
much. And I would say one item, and I mentioned this as well, is at least once a week somebody asks us when we're coming to Williamsport.
Well,
So
we're
I'm glad we're
excited.
having this conversation because it's on our radar, and especially now that we'll be brewing on site in addition to what we're already doing with the food, it'll make it that much easier of a transition when we get to come here.
Well, I tell you, I am excited for what's coming in Williamsport because I can tell you, being in the hospitality side, when people come into town, they're on that canal, and where you're going to be positioned on 30 West Salisbury beside the post office, that's the first spot to get a cold beer in
Mm,
your hand. How would you miss that? That's right.
yeah,
So it can be exciting.
yeah.
Well, thanks for
Thank you.
joining us today,
Thank you again,
and
as
take
always.
care. And we'll see you next time on the Dugout.
Thank you.
Thank you.